Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to JAAD Productions' first Codex review, Codex Daemons. So we don't normally do these kinds of reviews, but recently with Codex Daemons coming out, we've
figured we'd give it a shot.
We've been playing Warhammer for a very long time, me and T, and we didn't really have time to process the codexes that came out previously, but on this one we had a lot of very strong opinions, so... Now,
yeah, so as some of you are probably aware by now, I run Chaos Demons myself, at least 3 of the 4 factions of Chaos Demons.
Yeah, started that specifically for 8th edition too.
Yes, I chose that to be my 8th edition new army. So, I guess I'll just go through my thoughts on the various units and what's changed. And then I'll look at the special rules and tell you my thoughts on them. And yeah.
I might contribute a thought every now and again when I disagree on something, but other than that, take it away.
Yeah, so we've got Scarbrand, who hasn't changed aside from he's got a new sweeping blow, so better enables him to take on hordes of little guys, which is good. His rage embodied has changed so that it requires a test to fall back. Oddly, you've got to roll higher than your leadership on a 3d6. So if you roll lower, you do get to fall back, which is interesting. And it's now an aura.
You say you have to roll higher?
Yeah. A unit that wishes to fall back within 8 inches must roll 3d6. The total is greater than the leadership characteristic, then the unit cannot fall back this turn.
So that means the squishy guys are going to be able to... So squishy admech, who are like leadership 6 and guardsmen, are going to just be able to run away from them, no problems. That doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, I guess it's supposed to be like the weaker willed people just run away. Maybe, I'm not sure. It's a bit odd, bit of a nerf to Scarbrand, but I think his power level has also come down a bit, so, and his points, yeah, he's come down a power level, which means he would have come down some points as well, so yeah, he's pretty good. The Bloodthirsters, all 3 of them, received the same buff, where they now score 2 hits on an unmodified hit roll of 6. Which is pretty good, just makes them more killy. But you know, with only 6 attacks, it's highly likely that they're only going to get 1 extra hit off that anyway, in most cases. But otherwise, they're exactly the same power level, same stats. Same leadership aura, which is probably the most useless aura for greater demons. Since most of the time you want your graded demons flying off ahead of the army, not staying back to buff them. It's a bit of a waste to just leave them behind your lines. Anyway. Skulltaker. Skulltaker received a buff to his sword, which is good. It now does a fixed 3 damage instead of 1. And wound rolls of 6 do d3 plus 3 damage. So... he is actually now capable of slaying characters with his sword. Unlike before, where he only did 1 damage, or d6 on a roll of 6. I mean, most of the time he wasn't slaying anything.
He didn't intimidate me too much in the index. I sort of thought he was a waste.
Yeah, especially with only 4 attacks, or 5 on the charge. He doesn't get the +1 strength that the Heralds get. But he does get re-roll everything against characters, so... with his boost to his sword, he's much better character hunter. And of course he gets to add 1 to hit rolls, which means he hits on a 1-up, or 2-up, but it means when he takes on characters that have, say, hit debuffs on them, he can still hit them pretty good. Which is always handy.
Especially if you're fighting against a lot of stuff I use.
Yeah, very handy when you're fighting against... certain Eldar lists or Raven Guard.
Not so much them. I'm thinking more along the lines of
or Nurgle stuff.
Yeah.
It tends to have a lot of neg 1 to hit and melee sort of things.
Dark
Anyway.
Elder.
So they've renamed all the heralds, which is kind of cool, but also really annoying. So standard Herald of Khorne is now called a Bloodmaster. His weapon also received a buff. It's now called a Blade of Blood. It does D3 damage by default and 3 damage fixed on a roll of 6 up. So that's good, but also a little meh. With D3 damage, you're going to be doing an average of 2 anyway. So there's not a huge reward for getting a 6 up, but it's still better than nothing. Of course, his locus is the same, and all of his points values and power values are still the same. The Herald of Khorne on Juggernaut is now called a Skullmaster. He is exactly the same. Juggernaut, obviously very good. They still have the same weird problem where a Skullmaster has less attacks than the Juggernaut leader, the Blood Hunter, which is weird. So yeah, your Herald on Juggernaut has 3 attacks while your Blood Hunter has 4. That makes no sense whatsoever.
What makes no sense to me is why they go through all the effort to rename all the heralds and then leave Slaanesh. It's not that hard, right?
Yeah.
Poor
The
Slaanesh.
Blood Throne, the Herald of Khorne and Blood Throne is now just a Blood Throne. It's exactly the same as well, except for the Blade of Blood upgrade. Well, same with the Juggernaut one. Blade of Blood. You do also, however, get additional attacks with the Attendants, rather than having all the attacks combined together, which is interesting. However, the Attendants' strength is fixed at 4, so they do not gain the benefit of the Blood Throne's strength or its buff. So you get some nerfed Hellblades, but I guess it's better than no extra attacks. You get 2 extra attacks, so you don't even get bonuses for charging. There's a bit of a weird addition, but it's still a buff. He's still got all the same abilities. Crushing Impact on a 5+, and Gorefest to regain wounds when you slay a model with the Crushing Impact ability. Only 6-inch movement of 5 up armor save, though, makes it a pretty slow model. And probably good for summoning, rather than starting on the field. Then we got Karanak. Boy, has this guy gotten better. He's gone from being completely overpriced and kind of useless to actually being quite reasonable. He's dropped 2 power levels and a significant number of points for basically being identical to what he used to be. He's still got Prey of the Blood Gods, where you select a character and add 1 to hit and wound rolls. So he'll be hitting and wounding on 2s most of the time, against most Space Marine equivalent characters. And he's got his Brass Collar to deny 2 power, so I might actually look at getting one of these guys now, because when you're playing pure Khorne, you tend to lack the ability to deny psychics shenanigans. And then the Codex goes on to the HQs for Tzeentch. Yeah, so unlike the Index, the Codex keeps everything in their slot areas, which can be annoying when you're only caring about a particular god. Anyway, Kara's Fate Reaver received a bit of a buff in the form of points degradation. He still knows all of the psychic Tzeentch powers and can cast and deny 3 of them. And he gets D3 command points if he's your warlord in a battle-forged army, which is good. They remembered to include the ethereal form rule in his abilities this time.
Unlike some other codexes where they reprinted stuff without fact changes.
Yeah, I think he's an okay character. The Staff of Tomorrow is a bit lackluster, although
Personally,
going
with the
up to
addition of
strength
relics, I don't think he's any better than the Lord of Change.
I think he's good because he can do 3 powers, but
Tzeentch powers, I'm not super impressed by them. But you might have a different opinion on that.
anyway, speaking of which, the Lord of Change also received a buff in the form of a points decrease, but otherwise he's exactly the same. I do like the Lord of Change. He's one of the few sources of high strength, reliably hitting melee in a Tzeentch army. Still only knows 2 powers. Still can only cast 2 powers, sorry. But it knows 3 plus smite. So he can be pretty good. With the +2 psychic test bonuses these guys have, they'll be your main casters for some of the bigger Tzeentch powers, while the 2 lower caster rating powers should probably be given to the non-Lord of Change and Fate Weavers. The Changeling is now a bucket load of disappointment. Sadly, I never got to use him with the old rules, and now I probably will never use him at all. He loses his neg1 aura and has been replaced with a 6-up feel no pain aura, which is, obviously nowhere near as good. And so otherwise there's really no reason to run him. He does get a psychic power, and his special rules are cute if you can actually get him into combat with a character that has impressive stats and weapons that he could copy. But yeah, otherwise he's probably the biggest disappointment in the Codex for Tzeentch. The Blue Scribes, I believe they are the same. I never really...
The Blue Scribes have had one change to how they do their Sorceress Barrage. I'm pretty sure. They've had a change to how they cast spells with their ability.
Yeah, well, I saw in the fact that was just released today that they do get to cast a power even if it's already been cast when they do their random casting, however that works.
Yeah. Oh, they've changed the wording on that a little bit.
So it is now possible to cast a power twice using them. The Herald of Tzeentch on foot now has the really dumb name of Changecaster. But otherwise he is exactly the same. Still a great little buffer. With the Locus of Tzeentch being the +1 strength buff now not being useless, and the 2 powers that they can cast being very useful for buffing nearby units of horrors. The Fate Skimmer is what they now call the Herald on Chariot, or Herald on Burning Chariot. It's gone up a few points, like all the other Burning Chariot variants in this, probably because of the lamprey bites. Screamers now get to make all of their attacks with lamprey bites, so when this guy charges, you're getting 6 additional attacks at strength 6, AP neg 3, damage 2, which is really nice. Otherwise, he has all the same things as the Changecaster. I really like the idea of a Fate Skimmer. I am going to add one to my Tzeentch army. Being a fast chariot with less than 9 wounds and a character means they has some protection in the shooting phase that the Burning Chariot does not. And I think it'll be quite good, especially in that'll allow him to catch up to some of the faster Tzeentch units if you need to buff them, like Flamers or Screamers or whatever. Finally, we got the Flux Master, a single model. That's the Herald on disc. So it's literally just a Herald, costs a bit more, has 12-inch movement. I have 2 of them, since their movement allows them to be quite versatile with placement. and you give them their staff for the long range smite, so you can place them where you need to, and it's not so bad. And the 12-inch movement also allows them to easily keep up with flamers to give flamers the strength boost to their flames, which we'll get to later.
I'm personally a huge fan of the Flux Masters.
Alright, so now we go into the only faction that I don't possess.
Right.
Nurgle.
So, this might be where I need to comment on, because while I'm not really a Nurgle Demons player, I do know everything about Nurgle Demons and how to play them.
Well, anyway, so...
Rodigus.
First up, we've got Rodigus.
So,
it's hard to compare him to anything since he's a brand new model, but I think the best thing to do will be to compare him to the old Great Unclean One, which he is based off of.
So, when it comes to Rodigus...
for both him and Great Unclean Ones, they received a huge buff to their wounds, so they now have the most wounds of any of the greater demons.
Which they kind of rightfully should. So they've gone up to 12... They've gone from 12 to 18 wounds. Yeah.
And they changed what stats degrade. So instead of being ballistic skill, they changed it to strength.
Attack still degrades.
Attacks and movement still degrades.
Huge increase in power and points. Rodigus is expensive, but Rodigus himself, compared to a regular Great Unclean One, the new one in this book, is a rather impressive character. I would say on par with Scarbrand and Kara's Fate with him.
The thing about Rodigus is that compared to the other two named greater demons,
he's not that expensive.
He is still the cheapest by far. And as you'll discover as we go through the Codex, or if you've already read it yourself, he is probably a little bit overpowered when you factor in all of the other shit that Nurgle gets in this Codex.
I'll put this straight out there, because we might cover this later on. I think we shouldn't have gotten this Codex. I think we should have just gotten Codex Nurgle, because that's what it feels like. That's what I felt like when I first read this.
So, yeah, Rodigus has got his Streams of Brackish Filth, which is a 7-inch Assault 2d6 flamer that uses his strength, so starts off at strength 7, with the AP of a power sword, and rerolls to wounds, so incredibly powerful flamer. The only downside of it is that it's 7 inches, so if you deep strike him on, he won't get to use in the first turn, but if you're assaulting him within 7 inches, it's gonna hurt, no matter what it is that you're fielding. At strength 7 with rerolls to wound, it's just going to be terrible proposition. Then he's got his Null Rod, which puts him up to a strength 8 AP neg 2 damage 3, so fixed damage of 3 and rerolls to wound, like most of his stuff, means he's pretty much always going to be hitting and wounding, especially with weapon skill 2 up that doesn't degrade anymore. But if that's not enough, he also gets an additional D6 attacks with his Fanged Maw at strength user AP neg 1 damage 1. And if that's not enough, he gets his Attendance Claws and Teeth, which are probably ignorable for the most part, being strength 2.
It's D6 additional attacks. Don't argue with it.
It's
more free attacks.
Hitting on 2, strength 2. I like it because it's fluffy, but this guy basically gets 3 fight phases. He gets his Null Rod, his Fanged Maw, and then his Attendance Claws and Teeth.
But the thing that gets me about Rodigus is that he's probably the least close combat orientated of the 3 Great Unclean Ones variants that are available in this book. The fact that he's got all that, plus he's actually a really good Psyker for Nurgle, which have gotten amazing psychic powers.
His abilities, he's got his Deluge of Nurgle, and this is a really stupid ability. So every time he successfully manifests a psychic power with a test of 7 or more, so he only has to roll above 7, which he's going to be doing if he succeeds, because all the Nurgle powers are 7 or 6.
I think most of them are actually 5 or 6.
The closest enemy unit to him suffers a mortal wound. Now that has unlimited range and no targeting restrictions.
Unlike the Pestilential Fallout of the Death Guard, which makes it 1,000 times better.
It is a ridiculous power, so if you've got something within smite range of him, and the rest of your army's on this other side of the board, he can smite that thing to death and then do a mortal wound to your unit on the other side of the board, Just because.
He doesn't even need to do any smiting. He can just cast buffs and heals and still do it.
Well,
So...
no, because it goes towards the closest unit, so you would have to kill the unit that's closest to you.
No, but to get it off in the first place, he doesn't need to even...
True, he can just at the start of the game just cast a buff and then do a mortal wound to the closest unit to him.
Even a Miasma of Pestilence is going to set it off.
So it's an absolutely ridiculous way to just spam mortal wounds, especially since he can cast 2 powers, so that's 2 chances to just do an extra 2 mortal wounds for nothing. Then he's got his Crushing Bulk, which is the new standard rule that Great Unclean Ones get. They didn't have this before. As you'd expect, it's just on a 4-up, 1 unit suffers a mortal wound when he charges them, and he's got the standard Greater Demon rule of sharing his leadership. The Great Unclean One has more options than any of the other Greater Demons, but basically you choose 1 sword and a bell or flail. So the Plague Flail is an Assault 3 Strength user, damage 2, but it has the ridiculous ability where the damage from this weapon is not lost when it's succeeded. So absolutely ridiculous. He can kill up to 6 regular models with an Assault 3 weapon. So just more bonus stuff for Nurgle, and hitting on 3s he's not going to miss very often.
There's only 3 things in this game that I actually know of that have that same rule on their weapons, and 2 of them are Nurgle. It's a very ridiculous sort of Age of Sigmar kind of thing.
And he's got his Bile Blade, which is just a 4 sword with re-roll failed wounds, and then he's got his Bile Sword, which is a bigger sword, +1 strength and d6. Also re-rolling fail to wound rolls. You know, because Nurgle just gets to re-roll everything. And then he's got his Doomsday Bell, which is pretty crappy as a weapon, but it's got another ability which makes it interesting. And then for his abilities themselves, he's got all the regular ones. The Greater Demon one, the Crushing Bulk. Then he's got his Putrid Offering if he's got a Bile Blade. So he can suffer a mortal wound, which he can still get to ignore, so potentially no penalty, to add 1 to his psychic tests. So he can become a better psyker than many Zinj things. And just because. Like, you know, it's just ridiculous that he would get that ability when he's already incredibly tough and incredibly offensive orientated already. And then of course he's got his bell. I noticed a lot of the Nurgle stuff in this codex wants Nurgle players to summon, and this is the first thing that gives it away. So if he's got the bell, he can roll 4 dice instead of 3 to conduct the summon. But it's also got an additional ability which is far worse.
Ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous. Because Nurgle just gets all of their weaknesses covered in their special rules. He basically just gets to regenerate models for free. So
and it's any Nurgle demon.
Yeah, so it's any Nurgle demon within 7 inches of him. You roll a 4-up, and a single slain model is returned. So that could be from the lowliest Plague Bearer to
drones, toads,
to a bloat
beasts.
drone or a toad, or technically Death Guard drones as well, since they're Nurgle demons.
Not as of the new FAQ.
No, the new FAQ only affects stratagems.
No, the Death Guard got a new FAQ as well.
Yes.
Which removes the demon faction.
Yeah, but they still keep the demon keyword.
Yes.
It just removes them from factions, so you can't target them with the stratagems. So yeah, in addition to that, of course, he gets 2 psychic phases, 2 psychic powers. He can cast 2, deny 1, and he knows 2 plus smite. So, oh yeah, and of course he gets the attendants, the Nurglings attacks. So, overall, the new toy is something that Nurgle players will very much love. Now, Epidemius. There's not much to be said about him because he is amazing.
Hasn't changed much. Actually, I don't think he's changed at all.
He hasn't
Still
changed
broken.
at all. The only thing that's changed for him is he's got a Bale Sword now, which is just a power sword with re-rolls to wound. And is the only demon that has anything like this, his Tally of Pestilence, which basically just allows Nurgle demons who are already quite tough and hard to kill and very good at killing you in return, thanks to all of their rerolls to hit and wound and powerful weaponry, just makes them even better. The longer the game goes on, the more you kill, the higher your tally, the more buffs you get.
And with the combos you've already got in this book, it just takes the stuff you can do with your basic infantry up to insane levels.
Yeah, and since it affects all Nurgle demons, it really hurts. Horticulus Slimax is the other new model. This guy is amazing.
He's an Age of Sigmar import, and he doesn't disappoint.
No, he doesn't. With his strength and ballistic skill of 2, strength 5, toughness 6, 9 wounds, so he cannot be targeted because he is a character, obviously, and 4 attacks. His lopping shears are amazing, giving him strength 6, AP neg 3, D3 damage, and of course, as a Nurgle, he can reroll failed wounds. And then Mulch's Acidic Maw does straight 3 damage with strength 7 and AP neg 4. So, and that's just an additional attack as well. So very powerful in close combat. Doesn't look good on paper, but I played a practice game against my mate, and this guy just rips through my paladins.
Yeah, I've seen Slimax go either way in some games. But either way, he does have the potential to be really hurty.
He can hurt really bad, and in that game he didn't even get to use most of his abilities. It was just his pure combat abilities, thanks to his weapon's great AP and
Damage.
above average damage, and the fact that they just get to re-roll to wound. And then of course you got to remember they also get the tally, so he becomes even stronger.
Plus the combos of your regular, what do you call them now? Whatever the new heralds are called.
Anyway, so then he's got his 4 abilities, so that's more abilities than most other demon characters, in addition to the regular demon abilities of disgustingly resilient demonic ritual. He's got his beast handler to buff beasts, allowing them to add 1 to all hit rolls, so turns beasts from a good unit to a great unit, and it's a 12-inch aura as well, much larger than most other auras. He's got his slime trail, just because Games Workshop is obsessed with giving Nurgle free mortal wounds against enemies, just because. If an enemy falls back on a 4-up, they suffer D3 mortal wounds, which is huge. Of course, if you're charging Horticulus, you're probably not going to retreat anyway, or at least if you do, you're an idiot. In Death is Life, so he just gets to regenerate and heal Nurgle demons for free, and the only requisite is that something is slain, friend or foe, so it's pretty much always going to happen. He can use it to heal himself if he needs to, or his beasts, or anything around him. So it's just ridiculous. Nurgle being the only demon that has inbuilt ways of healing itself.
It's the only faction with inbuilt ways of healing itself.
And of course he's got his Seed the Garden of Nurgle, which allows you to place a new feculent Narwhal on the field within 3 inches of him, and 1 inch away from enemy models and terrain features. It can be awkward to place it in the right spot, as we discovered in our test game, but and of course you do have to pay for it in advance. But you probably don't mind that, just because it allows you to put that thing in a really annoying spot.
It's 40 points for an armor, so
you put it right in front of him after he's moved, to get it as far up the field as you possibly can.
It's funny, I think the 40k Slimax is actually weaker than the Sigmar one. I'm just happy Narwhals are 40 points instead of 3.
Alright, so the Herald of Nurgle is now called a Poxbringer. The only upgrade it's had is its Plague Sword is now a Bale Sword, which, as discussed previously, is a regular Nurgle sword but with AP neg 3. Otherwise, he's exactly the same. Alright, then we've got the two new Nurgle characters, or heralds, the Sloppity Bile Piper and the Spoilspox Scrivener. So these two really piss me off. So what we've got here is the Sloppity Bile Piper, who buffs Great Unclean Ones, and the Spoilspox Scrivener, who buffs Plague Bearers. So basically what they've done here is they've given you two heralds designed specifically to counter the weaknesses of your most commonly fielded units. How does this work exactly? Well, the Sloppity Bile Piper has his Diseases of Mirth rule, which is Nurgle Demons take morale test, roll 2 dice and discard the highest. So Nurgle Demons, that's just a general buff for all Nurgle Demons, which makes them far less likely to suffer casualties and far more likely to roll that valuable 1 to get models back. None of the other demon factions have anything that allows them to do anything close to that. And of course, each time a unit fails a morale test, 1 additional model is removed from that unit. Of course, that doesn't specify enemy units, so I guess it would be quite amusing if he accidentally did that to his own models. We can only hope. It's unlikely, though, since he gets to roll 2 dice and discard once for morale tests. And then he's got his Jolly Gut Pipes, which increases Nurgling and Great Unclean One attacks by 1, which is pretty good by itself. Then, of course, it also allows them to charge even if they advanced. So just their one weakness being that they're slow is just gone. And all you have to do is fill this 3 power character. It's ridiculous. The only weakness of the Sloppy Bile Piper himself is that his melee weapon that he has to defend himself with is pretty garbage. So
doesn't need anything else with that ability.
If they filled one and you've got snipers, you need to get rid of him as soon as possible. Preferably in turn 1 if you're going first. If you're not going first, then you're better off just ignoring him because they're going to be charging you in their turn 1 anyway, thanks to their abilities. And then the Spoilspox Scrivener is the Plague Bearer buffer. So he adds 2 inches to the movement of Plague Bearers within 6 inches, taking them from movement 5 to movement 7. So they go from being the slowest demon to the equal fastest with Slaanesh, completely negating their low movement weakness, quote unquote. And of course he's got his Keep Counting Meet Your Quota ability, which allows him to add 1 to all hit rolls. So their other weakness of Plague Bearers being that they only hit on 4s is completely negated now. Now they hit on much more reliable 3s. And of course, being Nurgle, that wasn't enough to just give them that boost. If they get a hit roll of 7, so if they roll a 6 on their hit rolls within the Aura ability, they get additional attacks. Ooh, just all of the abilities. Like I said, completely makes up for all their weaknesses. Alright, Slaanesh. Poor Slaanesh. So, the Keeper of Secrets did receive a slight buff, in that they got the Mesmerizing Aura, which forces the opponent to subtract 1 from hit rolls against them, which is pretty cool. The Wit Stealer Sword, of course, is also very cool, but hasn't changed, allowing you to also subtract 1 from hit rolls if they suffer a wound. So that's interesting. If the Keeper of Secrets goes first, you could end up and manage to get a wound with its Wit Stealer Sword. The enemy will be at neg 2 to strike back, assuming they don't just die. It could even go up to neg 3 if you had cast Cacnophic Choir on them previously. So that's pretty funny. But otherwise she is completely unchanged. She's still only strength 6, 7 with her sword. Meaning, although she's a good source of high strength attacks, her strength isn't really high enough to be taking on the other big greater demons. In fact, that's probably the worst target for her, as well as anything that's toughness 7 or 8. The mask is exactly the same, except for her claws have been upgraded to serrated claws. So they're AP neg 2, damage 2 by default. They still have the same old rending rule, going to AP neg 4 and a 6 up. This is good, it allows the Mask of Slaanesh to actually hurt stuff in melee, more than what she used to. And her default strength is 4, which helps with that as well. Her Eternal Dance and Locus of Beguilement are great, with buffing demonettes, since they allow you to add 1 to hit rolls for a chosen target within 1 inches, and subtract 1 from hit rolls in the fight phase that target demonette units within 6 inches. So you can go two ways with her. You can charge her in with the rest of your demonettes to take on your enemies, or you can just hold her right behind a whole line of them fighting and let her neg 1 to hit, help protect your very, very fragile demonettes. Then the Herald of Slaanesh is still called Herald of Slaanesh, so apparently they lost their creative juices when it came time to give Slaanesh a new name. The only change she has is Ravaging Claws that deal a damage of 2. And disappointingly, they completely got rid of the Herald on Steed of Slaanesh, the Herald on Chariot, and Herald on Exalted Chariot.
AKA the best ones.
Yes, also known as the best Heralds of Slaanesh. So, you can still use them though, as per the rules. You can use the Index Chaos versions. But that penalises you with not benefiting from the new Ravaging Claws, which do 2 damage instead of 1. But as Slaanesh Demons, they will still benefit from the Slaanesh Loci and stratagems and stuff. So still usable, but no upgrades. And of those 3 anyway, you would never run the Exalted. It was crap. But the regular Herald on Chariot was great. And of course, Heralds on Steeds are great for keeping your Heralds close enough to your Steeds to benefit them. Right, then we've got the remaining 2 HQ choices. Be'lakor, who I don't know Games Workshop why they hate him so much, but he's received massive power increase. He is completely unbound. He has none of the God faction keywords. He's still a beast of a dude though, since he subtracts 1 from enemy leaderships. That could combo well with a lot of the Slaanesh stuff. His reroll hits of 1 affects all demons, and he can reroll saving throws, and he gets powers from the Dark Hereticus discipline, although only 3 of them.
And sadly, none of them are warp time.
None of the warp time, but
Which
he's already got movement 14, which makes him faster than any of the other demon princes.
it's a bit of a thank goodness he doesn't have warp time.
But, you know, since his Blade of Shadows is AP neg 5 and damage 3, you cast Death Hex on something so it doesn't get an invul save and slaughter it. Say goodbye to Girly Man, or Celestine, or Call.
Yeah, Call, you don't even need the Death Hex.
Oh, probably not. I'm guessing his invul save is quite weak.
5 up.
Yeah. But anyway. And then we got regular demon princes who are still as amazing as ever. They've been fixed up to be the same as in Codex Chaos Marines. So the wounds have gone down to 8, which means they're now protected characters. The Malefic Talons are still amazing. They lost the ability to take a Warp Bolter though, being demons. You can give them wings. Corn ones get increased attacks since they don't get psychic powers, and of course they get smite and 1 psychic power and can manifest and deny 1 psychic power from their chosen allegiance. And the only source, or the best source of reroll hit rolls of 1s that demons have. So they're pretty much essential, yeah, outside of Nurgle wound rolls, which just always get to reroll something. Alright, so we're going to troops now. Bloodletters have been upgraded to fall in line as per Codex Chaos Marines. So Plague Bearers so have Nurglings, so have Demonettes. The biggest change, however, is to horrors. So, obviously, a lot of people are very unhappy with the changes to horrors. I don't mind them so much, since I never really went into the blue brimstone horror spam bullshit that everyone did.
The people who are unhappy with the changes to horrors are the people that deserve to be unhappy.
Yeah, pretty much. So, for those of you who don't know, they changed their invul saves, basically. So instead of having the demonic special rule to give them a 5-up and ethereal form, they now have a fixed save of 4-up for pinks, 5-up for blues, 6-up for brimstones. Which is fine. They also gave them... demonic icon is the same, split is the same, instrument is the same, iridescent horror. So obviously you always make your icon bearer the iridescent horror, since he always wants to be the last one. Magic Made Manifest is updated as per the FAQ, i.e. does 1 mortal wound if there's less than 10 pinks, and you still only roll a d6, so it's a 1 in 3 chance of actually casting Smite, and Brimstones are slain if they're selected as the caster, blah blah blah. But they now have the new magical horde rule, so their shitty coruscanting flame weapons go from assault 2 to assault 3 if there's 20 or more. So I can see that being very useful, especially now that they are strength user, which means they are still strength 3 base, but with the addition of heralds they go up to strength 4. And with the psychic power you can add +1 to wound rolls with them. Basically the horrors are now quite shooty, and with the ability to deep strike them within range, you can grab a unit of 20 and get your 60 shots straight away. Plague Bearers are exactly the same. They're still as bullshit as they always have been, since 20 or more of them give you subtract from all hit rolls, regardless from source. And the way the wording has changed is you now only look at whether or not they gain that rule at the start of the phase. So if you bring them down to 20 in the middle of your shooting phase, the rest of your shots at them still subtract 1 to hit, which is absolute bullshit.
And it stacks so well with all their other stuff that they get in this codex.
Yes, when you add to the fact that they have the best strength and toughness of all the basic demons, since they've got 4s, 4 and 4. They've got average weapon skill of 4, but that is more than made up for if you bring the Spoilpox. Yeah, the Spoilpox Scrivener. So with the addition of the Spoilpox Scrivener, the Plague Bearers become better at everything than any of the others. Like, the only thing they don't have is the AP of the Bloodletter Hellforged swords.
But they can make that up in damage.
But they make up for that with the fact that they can receive huge damage buffs, which we'll discover later, and the fact that they get to re-roll or fail wound rolls. So,
Minus 2 to hit.
Whatever you do hit is going to be wounded. Is going to have to make saves. Nurglings are the same. And Nurgle, of course, is the only faction that gets 2 troops choices. Demonettes are exactly the same, increasing their attacks if there's 20 or more. Piercing claws. Yep. Blood Crushers are the same. The Blood Hunter has 4 attacks, whereas regulars have 3. It still makes no sense to me why the Sergeant of a Blood Crusher unit has more attacks than a HQ on a Juggernaut. But anyway, they're still quite beasty, and they're expensive and fragile. Flamers! I love these guys. Or at least I love what they are now. So, it's been the rage of the internet. They now have a 12-inch range, so you can deep strike them in and get your flame shots off straight away, which is amazing. They're now strength user, which means they're strength 4 by default, but they can go up to strength 5 with the presence of a herald, which is easy to do if you bring along a herald on disc to keep up with them. They have a default AP of -1, so they can hurt and they can hurt lots of things. And of course, with 12-inch flickering flames, if anyone wants to charge them, they're going to feel it. Which is probably good for them, since their weapon skill is a pathetic 5 up. But they do have a lot of attacks to make up for it. At strength 4. 2 each for each flamer, 3 for the pyrocaster. The Exalted Flamer, he's gone up in points. He's now 90 instead of 70. He's still a character, so you can still hide him behind something, which he probably needs since he's only got 4 wounds for a 90-point model. That's quite pathetic. But his fires have been upgraded, so the blue flames are now fixed 3 shots instead of D3 shots, and a strength user plus 4, bringing up to strength 9 with AP neg 4 D3 damage. So mini las cannons. And the pink flames have also been increased to 12 inches. Strength user AP neg 2, automatically hitting their targets. And of course those will be improved if there is a herald nearby, so you can get strength 10 and strength 6 for those 2 weapons. And is one of the few Tzeentch units to actually have a weapon skill of 3 up, which he can attack with his Tongues of Flame. 3 attacks at strength user, so strength 5, AP neg 1, damage 1. So he's not going to do much in melee, but he is strong enough that weaker units probably won't want to charge him or fight him in melee. Beasts of Nurgle have been brought in line with the Death Guard Codex, so increased to wounds and a deadly slime trail, so yet another mortal wound dealing ability for Nurgle. I do love their Attention Seeker rule, though. It's very fluffy, very fun. Their putrid appendages do 2 damage, because of course they do. And D6 attacks is random, but hitting on 4s, but of course with Horticulus around, they're hitting on 3s, which turns them from okay to actually quite damn good. Fiends of Slaanesh, who cost exactly the same amount, but are more than twice as fast, with a weapon skill of 3 up by default, but of course the Beasts of Nurgle can catch up with that with their buffs. But less toughness, less wounds. 4 attacks fixed, which means they're going to have more attacks on average, I guess. Their Dissecting Tails and Vicious Barb Tails are the same. They're okay weapons, I guess. The Disruptive Song is pretty cool. Subtract 1 from Psychic Tests. And the Sporific Musk is amusing if you ever manage to charge a Land Raider or some kind of vehicle, non-flying vehicle with it. Imperial Guard armies will hate you if you manage to pull it off. It's amusing as hell.
Yeah.
And at 14 inches, they can easily catch up with the rest of your Slaanesh army. In fact, I think that makes them the fastest Slaanesh model there. Or maybe just as fast as the Seekers. So yeah. Flesh Hounds have been buffed in the form of a 5-point decrease per model, so they're now 15 points each, making them much cheaper and more reasonable to field.
Still not convinced they're worth taking.
Strength and Toughness 4 with 2 wounds and 2 attacks, so that puts them at 3 attacks, strength 5. Makes them a great, in a pure Khorne army, makes them a great light infantry attacker, freeing up your bloodletters to go for something heavier. And of course they can deny 1 psychic power, which is very important. Screamers. Screamers have gone from meh to actually pretty good. Incredibly fast, 16-inch movement. They now only have their Lamprey Bites, so 3 attacks at strength plus 2, strength 6, AP neg 3, damage 2. So they can go up to strength 7 if there's a herald nearby. If you're running pure Tzeentch, these guys are pretty good targets for the Boon of Change, since whether they get extra attack, extra strength, or extra toughness, they're going to appreciate it. and their slashing attack ability has been buffed so that it works if you don't advance, but not if you fell back. But it's still the same, d6 on a 6 you inflict a mortal wound, so the one time Zinch actually gets a non-spellcasting mortal wound ability, it's only on 6s, unlike all the Nurgle stuff, which seems to always work on 4s. Plague Drones, they received the buff in the form of +1 wound, so now they're even harder to take out, and they were already difficult to take out with toughness 5 and 10-inch movement, meaning they're more than fast enough to do whatever the heck you want. Their Death's Heads provide Nurgle with probably their only form of true shooting. Re-rolling wounds of 1 at strength 4. You're probably not going to hit much, but what's scary about them is their prehensile proboscis, which is what the flies attack with, getting 4 attacks per fly. So it's a lot of attacks with re-rolling failed wound rolls, and the fact that they do 2 damage each. So although they have no AP, when they get through they're going to hurt thanks to their 2 damage each. So I think that's all I have to say about them. They're just ridiculously good. Especially if you compare them to Seekers. You get 5 Seekers for the same power, or roughly same price. Seekers have only changed slightly. Instead of having an inbuilt ability to advance and charge, they replaced it with re-rolling failed charge, which is quite handy for them since they're quite fragile and you do absolutely need them to get their charge off. But otherwise they're exactly the same. The FAQ added the Demonet keyword to them so they can benefit from some of the abilities that only affect Demonet units, such as the masks, which is quite handy for them. The Hellflayer is completely unchanged. Yeah, completely unchanged. I like the Hellflayer. It's a good source of strength 8 or higher attacks. It's just sad that it only gets d6 of them. But it can be amusing if there's a Herald nearby that increases them to strength 10. But they're let down by their AP. Only AP of -1. Furies, I believe, went down in price even further. It's 3 power for 5 of them. They gain the appropriate demon ability, demonic reward of whichever one they're aligned to. Just good luck getting the models, since they're older crappy models and you only get 5. And if you do field these guys, you probably want to field them in at least units of 10. And their Prey on the Weak ability is amusing, but it'll probably never come into play most of the time, since it relies on the enemy both failing a morale test, being within 12 inches of them, and then you rolling a 4 up. So, not worth it for that ability alone. And now we're into heavy support choices. So the Skull Cannon. The good old Skull Cannon has received a bit of a buffing. It's now flat 5 power or 100 points. And the cannon itself has been upgraded to just be heavy d6. I would have preferred a fixed number, to be honest, but heavy d6 isn't terrible. And an increase to its AP. So it looks like it's almost a mini battle cannon now. So I think they realised that it sort of didn't know what it wanted to shoot at, and now it's quite clear that it is actually useful for shooting at heavier things. Just don't target Leman Russes or anything with toughness 8 with it, because it's just not worth it. The Burning Chariot. The Burning Chariot went up 20 points. But it receives all of the benefits that the Exalted Flamer received to its weapons. It's only weapon skill 4 up. 8 wounds. So but it loses the character keyword for some reason. 6 lamprey bites. An interesting change is not only do they increase its points, but now you have to pay an extra 5 points if you want your blue horrors riding along. So you probably will never ever do that. Just not worth it. So, but still very useful with a fixed 3 shots from the blue flames. Seeker Chariot and Exalted Seeker Chariot. So the Seeker Chariot itself received no changes, I think, or maybe received an extra attack. No, just an extra attack. So Seeker Chariot received an extra attack, but is otherwise identical. Scything Impact still only works on 6s, so Slaanesh's best source for doing mortal wounds outside of the Psychic phase only works on 6s, unlike Nurgle, who gets most of his mortal wound abilities on 4s. The Exalted Seeker Chariot received some huge, well not huge, but some much needed buffing. For one, they increased its wounds to 12. And they changed the damage chart so it's not utterly ridiculous anymore. So before it was weapon skill of 2 up, and then 4 up, and then 6 up. Which basically meant as soon as the Exalted Seeker took 5 wounds, which isn't terribly difficult to do at toughness 5 with a 4 up armor and 5 up invul, it would just become absolutely useless. Now at least it can still hold its own all the way up to its final degradation. But ironically, to make up for that, they nerfed the Scything Impact for it, so now it only works on 6 for them as well. So, yay. The Soul Grinder, otherwise known as the platypus of this Codex of Demons, got an increase in points cost. And what did it get for that? Well, it got extra attacks. And the Phlegm Bombardment became D6 instead of D3. So, it still doesn't know what it wants to do. It's still got shitty ballistic skill. So, if you hold it back and shoot with its weapons, you're probably not taking full advantage of it. And if you move it forward, then its weapons are going to suck, because they're going to be hitting on 5s or 6s. I'd say because of its new buffs to attacks, if you field one, you want to field for its melee capabilities. So the Iron Claw, which is Strength 16, AP Neg 3, D6. Great for wrecking vehicles. The Warp Claw, if you want to take on hordes or large units of elites, since you get 2 attacks for every one, so it's 10 attacks at full health. AP Neg 2, D3 damage is respectable. Or the Warp Sword, which I never used to like, but with 5 attacks I actually like it a lot now. It allows you to reroll failed hit rolls, which compensates for the fact that it has a shitty weapon skill of 4 up. And of course it receives the usual demonic rewards. And then the last entry is the Feculent Narwhal. You can take up to 3 of them in a single fortification detachment. This model has no stats, so you cannot affect it anyway, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Especially given what it gives you. So, it gives you a Shroud of Flies, giving +2 saving throw instead of 1. So it is a +2 cover save, basically, to Nurgle Demons. So most of your Nurgle Demons will go to a 4-up save. Then you got your Sickness Blooms, so yet another mortal wound dealing thing for Nurgle that affects on a 4-up. Unlike all of the other poor factions that only get their mortal wound dealing things on 6-ups. And how it works is a d6 for every unit within 3 inches. On a 4-up it's 1 mortal wound, and on a 6 a ridiculous d3 mortal wounds. Nurgle units are of course unaffected. Then you got the Plague Bell Chimes. So they can... Nurgle demons can, within 7 inches at the start of their turn, can shoot, charge, even if they fell back or advanced. So more weakness compensating buffs for Nurgle. Absolutely ridiculous. And if that's not enough, they have yet another ability. This one's related to summoning. So you can re-roll dice when summoning Nurgle demons within 7 inches of a feculent Narmal. So they really want Nurgle to summon stuff, as well as be practically invincible and the best at everything.
It feels a little ridiculous just from that, and we haven't even gotten to Loci and Relics.
Yeah. So now we'll look at the new stuff, the special rules and stuff. So Demonic Legion's ability just is the regular objective secured thing for troops units. It's only amusing in that Nurglings can now are now scoring units over other units that might not be troops choices, which is funny. Then you got your Demonic Loci. So the wording on this is, if your army is battle forged, all characters in Chaos Demons detachments gain the locus, as long as every unit in that detachment owes its allegiance to the same Chaos God. So that's good. Good way of wording it, because it means you could include other Khorne, for example, if you're running Khorne demons, but you want to throw in some other Khorne stuff in the mix, as long as they all have the Khorne faction keyword, you'll still get your Demonic Loci, which I think is good, because I like to run demon engines to compensate for some of my demons' weaknesses, but I don't like to run mortal followers.
Mortal followers for the win.
So that's good for that. Now the Loci themselves, you've probably seen them before. So the Khorne one is reroll charges. The Tzeentch one is a weird close combat protection thing. The Nurgle one basically lets them do what the Bloodletter Swords already did, which is an extra damage on a roll of 6. And the Slaanesh one allows advancing and charging within 6 inches, which is amazing for Slaanesh, and exactly what they needed. So on these, I like them all. I think the Tzeentch one is a bit weird, very fluffy, but probably not that useful. It's probably the least useful one. And the Nurgle one, I think, is just silly. They didn't need it, and it just makes them even better at doing what all the what other demons already do. But anyway, stratagems. So, as per the fact that just came out, the stratagems only affect units that have the demon keyword in their faction profile. However, this doesn't stop some of them, because some of these stratagems allow a model to generate an aura. So the effects of those auras will still affect all demons as usual. It just means when you choose your target for these, you have to choose something with the demon keyword faction. So the most amazing one, Denizens of the Warp, allowing you to spend 1 or 2 CP to put a demon unit in Deep Strike, can no longer be used on demon engines and Primarchs, since all of those units that did have the demon keyword in their faction have had it moved to the non-faction keyword section as per the FAQ that was just released for Codex Chaos Marines and Codex Death Guard. But still useful. I don't mind that at all, since the demon engines I'm running, with the exception of probably the Blood Slaughterer, didn't want to deep strike anyway, since they're shooting ones that I brought in to make up for Khorne's lack of shooting, or Slaanesh's lack of shooting. Then you got Demonic Incursion, which is 2 CP. A great little buffer to use against Grey Knights. I experienced this the hard way when I played my Grey Knights against my mates' Nurgle Demons, allowing them to just bring back a full unit that's not a character if it's completely destroyed by a Grey Knights unit, and it doesn't cost any reinforcement points. Soul Sacrifice to make your summoning better. The character summoning takes D3 mortal wounds, but you roll up to 4 dice rather than 3, and the unit that you summon gets re-roll hits of 1 while it's within 6 inches of the character that performed the summon. So, another stratagem or thing that Nurgle can make the most of, whereas the other ones don't, since Nurgle will have a 1 in 3 chance of stopping the mortal wounds that the character suffers. All the others will just have to take it. The Rules of Chaos is just the regular artifact improving one. And then the Demonic Pact, which allows you to get an extra summon. So, despite how crap the summoning mechanics are, the Codex has made the possibility of a summoning focused army quite appealing now, if you can be bothered in match play to keep up with all the paperwork required for such an army, since that would require you to keep track of how many points you have for summoning, and then during the game subtract out the points that you spend on it. You got Demonic Possession, which is a cute fluffy one. For 1 CP, an enemy Psyker that suffers Perils of the Warp takes 2d3 mortal wounds, so say goodbye, Eldar Psykers, or really any other Psyker if they're unfortunate enough to fail against demons. It's a cute little one just for 1 CP. Very situational, but if you can use it, you will. And Warp Surge, which costs 2 CP, but is still amazing, probably worth it if used at the right time. And it allows you to increase your invul save by 1 to a maximum of 3 up, but you cannot re-roll them. So this is cool. It brings Tzeentch to a 2 up save, since it will increase their 4 up to a 3 up, and then they get the +1.
I thought it couldn't go beyond 3 up.
Yeah, but it can bring them up to a maximum of 3 up, but the Imperial Form rule is just a +1 to the dice roll.
Cheesy.
And then we go into the faction specific ones. So each faction gets 3 unique to them, including 1 banner stratagem. So for Khorne, the banner stratagem allows them to conduct all the banner stratagems have to be used before the game, and you select a banner in one of your Khorne, or in one of your units, and then once per game they can use that banner special ability. So for Khorne, the ability is a 3d6 inch charge. For Nurgle, the ability is increasing the Plague Sword's damage to 2, which means they can go up to damage 3 with their loci. It's just absolutely ridiculous. For Tzeentch probably has the worst of the banner ones. You roll 9 dice, and for each 6, the closest visible unit within 9 inches suffers a mortal wound. It's like, ooh. So, like, maybe 1 or 2 mortal wounds at most. It's definitely the worst one. And for Slaanesh, the icon gives them reroll failed to hits, which is actually really good. Right, and then the other stratagems. So Khorne gets the Locus of Wrath, which allows you to select a character and grants that character a reroll failed hit roll aura for Khorne demon units within 6 inches. So that's for that phase, which is pretty awesome, pretty worth it for 2 CP. A bit on the expensive side, but worth it. And the Frenetic Bloodlust, which is your generic fight again in the fight phase stratagem for 3 CP, but only Khorne gets to take advantage of that. It does target Khorne Demon units, so you could use it on your Bloodletters if you wanted to. Or, yeah. Nurgle. Nurgle probably has the worst end of the stick for the stratagem-wise, since both of their stratagems cost 2 CP each, so they'll burn through their command points like butter. But for what you get, they're pretty good. So for 2 CP, you can regenerate D3 lost wounds on a Nurgle demon, so just more healing, because the amount of healing and regeneration Nurgle had wasn't enough already.
Oh. You can get 2d3 wounds restored on a Great Unclean one per turn.
Yes you can, because you've got his ability and you've got the stratagem. Actually,
psychic power.
You could restore. You can restore more than that because you got the psychic power as well.
Yeah, the psychic power restores D3.
The psychic power restores D3. Horticulus can restore 1, and then you restore another D3 with that. Yeah. So just all the healing for Nurgle. It does cost 2 CP though, so it's not cheap. Unlike the psychic power, you can't just do it every turn, because you'll have no command points left for anything else. And then they've got their Locus of Fecundity. This allows you. This is an aura one. I think every single demon faction gets an aura one as well as a banner one. So you select your character, your demon Nurgle character, until the end of the phase you re-roll disgusting resilient rolls of 1. So just make them even tougher to kill for that phase. But at 2 CP, it is quite costly. But you only need 1 round of not getting killed in this game is more than enough to turn the tide incredibly.
So that was an aura?
Yeah, it's an aura.
That's actually amazing.
Yeah, it's a 6-inch aura.
The reason they're 2 CP is because both of those are game turning.
Yeah, they really are. Then for Tzeentch, you've got, for 1 CP, you've got the Magical Boon, which just lets you cast an additional psychic power. That'll probably be most useful for your Heralds, since they only get to cast 1 power and they know Smite and 1 other power. That command allows one of them, at least, to cast both their power and Smite. And then you've got Locus of Conjuration, which is the Tzeentch Aura one. So you select your Tzeentch character, and you can re-roll failed psychic tests for within 6 inches for that phase. Probably not as useful, since you're highly unlikely to be having your Tzeentch stuff all close together like that. But it could be useful in, say, getting a number of small units of Pink Horrors, double chances to do their Mortal Wound Smite on a 5-up, since that does count as casting a psychic power. So it takes them from a 1 in 3 chance to a just below half chance of getting it off.
So bad.
This is not terrible. Probably not worth it for 2 CP just for that. You probably want more than just 1 unit of Pink Horrors in range if you're going to use that stratagem for it to be worth it. Slaanesh. Poor old Slaanesh is actually probably got the best straw in terms of stratagems. All of her stratagems are 1 CP. So aside from the banner one, which I already discussed, we've got the Locus of Grace, which is her aura one. And that gives Slaanesh demons within 6 inches of the character. A wound roll of 6 allows you to make an extra attack without generating any further ones, obviously. So that's a handy little aura for only 1 CP. Well, you
stack that with the banner?
You already want to wound the banner.
Yeah.
But the banner lets you reroll failed hit rolls. This is if you roll a wound roll of 6. So if you're rolling your wound rolls of 6, which you already want to do in most cases to get the rend, you get extra free attacks off of it.
It's weird that you get extra attacks on the wound roll. No one else gets that.
It is weird.
But don't argue with that with Slaanesh, because you're already pouring on a lot of attacks,
exactly.
Even on really 3-ups. So.
Exactly. You're already pouring a lot of attacks that are hitting on 3-ups or 2-ups, depending on your scenario. with rerolls of 1s possibly.
And they can be anywhere from strength 4 to strength 8.
Well, most of the time they'll be strength 3 or 4.
Remembering heralds.
So yeah, that's really handy. And really cheap, so Slaanesh can actually afford to spam the crap out of that every turn if they want. And then they've got the Aura of Acquiescence. So you use this at the start of your fight phase. It's a debuff aura. So you select a Slaanesh demon unit. Doesn't have to be a character. And enemy units within 3 inches reduce their attacks characteristics by 1 to a minimum of 1.
Amazing.
That's really handy.
I love that.
It is situational. You won't always need to use it, because many units, there are not many units that have more than 1 attack.
It's not great for
It's
not great for countering hordes, but it's great against really elite armies.
It's great against anything that has more than 1 attack on its base profile, really.
Which is a lot of stuff that people like to spam.
So, yeah, and at only 1 CP, that's a pretty good ability. So,
sorry about that.
Slaanesh stratagems, all 1 CP, so feel free to go nuts with them, because they're all really useful.
Well, I would. Now, psychic powers are...
So, Warlord traits now.
We've got Warlord traits.
So, I love this. Every single god got 6 fresh Warlord traits. They're all pretty good. There's probably only a couple that are really crap.
I looked through them. I've only seen 1 or 2 in each that were like,
And then, of course, we've got the characters with the Warlord traits that they get. So,
I haven't actually looked at.
For Khorne, I'll just go through these really quickly. So Khorne has the aspect of death, which is units fail morale tests, remove 1 additional model. It's meh. Karanak gets that by default, so you probably will never make Karanak your warlord, not that you should have been anyway.
Yeah.
Glory of Battle is add 1s to your warlord's attack characteristics while there are more enemies than friendlies within it. That's okay for your Bloodthirsters, I guess.
Yeah, send your Bloodthirster, charge it up, get it outnumbered.
Get extra attacks. Oblivious to Pain, so it gives you a 6-up Feel No Pain. That has the benefit of if you succeed at any of it, you get rerolled failed hits and wound rolls. It's a bit situational. The best one for that is your Bloodthirsters, but often enough your Bloodthirsters are going to be hitting and wounding on 2s anyway.
It's more the ignores damage.
So you take that more for the Feel No Pain.
I mean, you were probably already taking that if you were taking a Bloodthirster from the standard rulebook.
Yeah.
With the 6-up Feel No.
Then we got Immense Power, which is the shit one. Just +1 to strength. Meh. You would never take that on any of them. Then you got Devastating Blow. Skull Taker gets this by default. It's a really interesting one. I like it because it's fluffy. So each time your warlord fights, instead of making its regular combat attacks, you make a single attack roll. And if you hit, target suffers D3 mortal wounds.
I like that on a herald.
It's a bit meh, but I can see it. It's situational.
It's situational, but I would see it best played on a herald on foot, not on Juggernaut or Bloodthrone.
Well, you get it on Skull Taker by default, and I think it's really handy for him.
Well, it is...
For him, it's really good, because...
Well, he needs to be dealing mortal wounds. He needs to be killing characters.
He wants to kill characters, so if you do come up against a character that has, like, a really good invul save,
a really good Feel No Pain. Yeah.
Or if you come up against one that's got a really good invul save, you can use that instead. Or if you just need to finish a character off because they've only got a couple of wounds.
Just the potential to do D3 mortal wounds is just good, period.
Yeah. And then the last one, which in my opinion is the best one, is Rage Incarnate. Now, Scarbrand gets this by default, which I found really interesting. Which actually makes Scarbrand a really good contender for actually bringing along and making your warlord. His only weakness then being, of course, las cannon spam. He'll die really quickly.
I'm pretty sure everything in this game has a weakness to las cannon spam.
But the ability itself, it gives an aura that allows you to reroll hit rolls of 1 to Khorne demons if they charge this turn and are within 8 inches of the warlord. So it's a good little buff. It's a really good buff. It means you don't have to include Demon Princes if you want to get those reroll ones.
You know what I like that on? I like that on a Juggernaut Herald.
Me too.
Because he's got the best posse to ride up with.
So, as you'll see as we go through each one of these, they basically gave every single faction, except Nurgle, I think, an aura.
Nurgle's got enough auras.
They gave every single faction an aura warlord trait. So Tzeentch traits, try and get through these as quick as I can.
Yeah.
So we got Born of Sorcery, which is add 1 to the first psychic test made for your warlord. That's really handy. If you give that to your Lord of Change...
+4 at full, isn't it? No, +3.
It'll give you +3, which makes it so much easier to cast that...
the Vortex power is what
the
you're thinking of.
Vortex or the Bolt of Change.
Yeah, all those.
Because they're casting 8, suddenly now you're casting them on 5. So that's really handy. And if you're playing beta rules, obviously that's handy to make up for the smite
helps.
beta but nerf.
Helps with the D6 smite as well. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good Bolt of Change.
Next one is Incorporeal Form, which I think is the most useful one for Greater Demons. It's one of those reduced damages on them by 1. I think that's really handy for your Lords of Change.
Yes.
Especially if your Lord of Change is one of those ones that likes to get into the thick of it.
The one with the sword. Yeah.
Then you got Warp Tether, which is pretty useless. You can reroll failed morale tests for friendly Tzeentch demon units within 9 inches. I could see you trying to stack that with a Greater Demon's aura to make them completely immune, basically, to morale. But there are better options to take on a Greater Demon.
Considering the units that are going to be benefiting from that reroll morale, I would say it's not worth it. I mean,
it's not worth it. Like
those horrors, if they're taking that morale test, they're gone anyway in terms of their effectiveness.
Yeah, well, the only one it would be worth taking on is a Lord of Change, so that it can stack with the buff that they get.
Yeah.
But if you're bringing a Lord of Change, there are much better options here for him anyway. So you probably will ignore that one. Lawkeeper of Tzeentch. You add 6 inches to the range of the first psychic power. Is meh.
Actually, I could see that being very, very good.
It's meh, I think at best. Your Tzeentch psychic powers have pretty good range, and the guys that are casting the offensive ones have the movement to get in range easily.
Oh, so it's a difference. It's a first turn cast across the table. I could see it being useful. Probably better for your Greater Demons.
It's not as useful as the other ones.
No.
Torrent of the Warp, so allows you to ignore perils on a 2-up. There are probably better things to spend your Warlord traits on.
Eldar Psychers get that. It can be useful, but very, very situational.
It can be useful, but again, I think I would rather take Incorporeal Form.
I mean, it means you don't have to spend a command point to avoid your perils.
True. And then Demon Spark, which is the best one, and the Aura one. It's a Aura that allows you to reroll wound rolls of 1 in the shooting phase for Tzeentch demons within 9 inches.
Yes.
So you take that one on a Herald on Chariot or on Disc, and have him fly up with whatever it is that you've got shooting.
Can you put that on our Exalted Flamers are elites, aren't they?
Exalted Flamers are elites.
Still,
but they are characters, so you technically could make them your Warlord and give them that Warlord trait if you want.
I'm just thinking that combined with Flamers or Burning Chariots gives much hilarity.
I would put this on my Chariot Herald and plop him right up in the middle of all of my forces to get as many people as possible. It's a 9-inch aura, so it's not a small aura.
That's an aura I would not only consider putting on the Chariot guy, I'd even put that on the Disc guy.
Yeah, or a Disc guy.
On the Flux Master, I think.
So, yeah, that's a very good aura.
I like that. Like that a lot. Really helps horrors, too.
Alright, now we go into Nurgle, so prepare yourselves for more cheese. So first we got Blessed with Corpulence, which is a simple +1 wound, so 19 wound Great Unclean ones.
19 regenerating 5 up. No. Yep.
Then you got Acidic Ichor, which is what Horticulus gets by default. Oh, by the way, the Changeling gets Incorporeal Form.
Which one was Incorporeal Form?
So that's the 1 less damage.
Ah, yeah, makes sense.
And Kairos gets Tyrant of the Warp. So Kairos, you would probably never run as your warlord because you want that demon spark.
You want the demon spark, but it's not a bad warlord trait. But yeah, no.
You want that demon spark, so you probably would not make Kairos your warlord.
It makes fluff sense for him.
It does make fluff sense for him,
but it's not great.
So yes, Acidic Ichor, which is what Horticulus gets, is if you lose a wound on the fight phase on a 4-up, the unit that inflicted the wound suffers a mortal wound. So more mortal wounds on 4-up for Nurgle.
So when he reaches you, and he will reach you, even hurting him will hurt you.
Yes.
Great.
It's just, you're playing against Nurgle, it's pretty much a game of, what phase is it? 4-up, mortal wound. 4-up, mortal wound.
Aren't you glad I like mortal followers?
Then we got the Plague Fly Hive. So, subtract 1 from all hit rolls within 7 inches of your warlord. Attack rolls made on the warlord.
Say that again.
Your opponent must subtract 1 from all hit rolls that target your warlord if the attacking unit is within 7 inches.
If they're within 7 inches.
Yes. So it's not as terrible as the Plague of Flies that the Nurgle things have. That the Plague Bearers have.
Basically you can set up your Great Unclean One so that you have -1 to hit outside of that range and -1 to hit and -2 to hit inside of that range.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Or you could give it to Scabythrax and suffer -2 to hit when you're within 7 inches. When you're close combat with him. It's absolutely ridiculous. They did not need another subtract 1 thing.
So basically, guys who are hitting on 2, you can set them up so that they're hitting into close combat on 4s. Jeez.
Yeah, on 4s. Virulent Touch, which is what Epidemius gets. It's add 1 to all wound rolls made by your warlord, unless it's targeting a vehicle.
Complete trash. Would never take Epidemius as my warlord if that's the case. Never ever.
No.
He should never be in combat.
Well, Epidemius should never be in combat anyway, so you would never take him as a warlord, and thus not get that warlord trait. That's probably the worst of the Nurgle ones, which is saying a lot because by itself, most models would kill to have something like that.
Considering Nurgle in this codex doesn't have heralds on drones anymore, I would never take that either.
Although, considering Epidemius now has basically the equivalent of a power sword, that can make him actually really dangerous in combat. Surprisingly dangerous in combat.
It's the same thing that I learned with the AdMech. They have the stuff that makes them dangerous in combat, but they should never be.
But remember, Epidemius is still hitting on 2s with a strength of at least 6.
You're bringing him for his tally.
You are bringing him for his tally, but it's like, if you do not underestimate Epidemius anymore. Impenetrable Hide is the next one. Gives them a armor save of 4-up.
No. No.
That's useful considering...
Considering with the Gnarl Maws, you can get a 2-up armor.
You can give it... Yep, you could give a Herald 2-up armor. Because remember, the Gnarl Maw doesn't affect monsters or vehicles.
No.
But you could still take it on a Great Unclean One and give him a 4-up armor save just to make him that much harder to take down with weak weapons.
You combine that with the relics, you can give him a pretty good armor, pretty good involved use. They all make him either harder to...
And then finally we got the Pestilent Miasma, which is what Rotigus gets if he's your warlord. Roll a dice for each enemy unit within 1 inches of your wall at the start of the turn on a 4-up. That unit takes a mortal wound.
That's nothing new. That's in the Death Guard. It's so-so because of its range, but it's still annoying.
But on Rotigus, he's already doing 4-up mortal wounds to you in like every phase.
Rotigus is a mortal wounds beast.
It's just ridiculous the amount of 4-up mortal wounds that Nurgle gets.
It's the fact that you can't make him any more survivable than what he is the redeeming quality. Like, yes, he's still tough, but you can't make him tougher, thank goodness. Not with warlord traits and relics.
Yeah.
There's one redeeming feature.
Slaanesh. Slaanesh has the most interesting ones. Well, not the most interesting ones, but she does have some good ones. She hasn't been completely shafted.
In this area, at least.
in this particular area. So we've got the Celerity of Slaanesh, which adds 3 inches to your movement. Kinda meh. Although you can imagine it being quite amusing if you gave that to Zarakinal, who can now move...
Oh no.
12... You can now move 15 inches and still advance and still charge without even needing the loci.
Oh, don't do that to me. Don't. That's mean.
If you've got a big warlord that you want to have a first turn charge, that's really good.
I mean, a faster Keeper of Secrets? No need for complaining.
Then you got Quicksilver Duelist, so reroll failed hit and wounds when you're fighting characters in the fight phase. So if you've got a character hunter, it could be useful. But considering how often you'll be getting into the characters that you want to get into with what you want to get into them...
See, I see that being best being on a Keeper of Secrets, but the Keeper of Secrets would probably never reach the target it's after.
Exactly. So, it's bound to be roadblocked or...
So I can't see what you would put that on.
Yeah.
Especially with some of the Chariot the Chariot Heralds going.
Yeah, I really don't see who you'd be able to put that on to make the most of it. The Murder Dance, which is probably the best one for Keeper of Secrets or bigger ones. So if you charge, add D3 to your attacks characteristics till the end of the phase. So potential 1 to 3 extra attacks is always handy.
That would be... even, put that on,
You put that on Zarakinal.
Zarakinal, Keeper of Secrets, index version, Chariot Heralds.
You probably wouldn't... yeah, give it to them, I suppose. I probably wouldn't make them my warlord, though, anyway.
No, you wouldn't, but it's an amusing thought.
Then you got Fatal Caress, which basically gives you Rending Claws +1. So on a wound roll of 6... when your warlord is fighting, the target suffers a mortal wound in addition to extra damage. So it's just super extra special fun time rending. But it doesn't say it's limited to just things with rending claws, so you can give it to your Keeper of Secrets.
Well, it's a warlord trait, so hey, mortal.
I don't see it being as useful as the other ones. I'd rather have the extra attacks.
The D3 attack so far stands out along with the movement. Then
you got Savage Hedonist, which is just +1 to attacks.
It's a more reliable version of the other one.
It means 1 extra attack all the time, as opposed to 3 extra when you charge. I think I'd rather 3 extra.
Well, how many attacks does the Keeper of Secrets have? 6?
Something
5?
Like I think it's 5 or 6.
I mean...
I'd still rather the Murder Dance. I'd rather get the extra attacks in one phase, because Slaanesh, you generally want to be killing your target.
Well, considering you'll be going first with the Swift Silver,
you probably want the extra
the extra D3 on the charge. You want, if you Slaanesh, you want to be the one doing the charging.
Yeah. And then the final one is their Bewitching... Oh, by the way, the Murder Dance, the extra D3 is what the Mask has.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
So the Mask is probably a good choice for a character warlord if you want. There's really no disadvantage to that. Except that you might want to take someone with the Bewitching Aura instead.
Hit me with this.
So this is an aura, 6 inches. Doesn't affect vehicles. Enemy models subtract 1 from their attacks characteristic.
I love it.
So you can combine this quite well to subtract 2 from attack characteristics. It is only 6 inches, whereas the stratagem, I believe, is 3 inches.
Oh, I'm just thinking about how many attacks, like things that when they make an attack with a profile, it splits up into 3 separate. You get to roll 3 dice for that one.
Yeah, you could completely negate it.
You just take away those from them, and all of a sudden, all sorts of units, Wraith Knights, Morty, all.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So I think the irony is,
I like taking away attacks because it's something that only Slaanesh does.
The irony is, I think, for these demon factions, is that aside from Nurgle, you probably want a Herald as your warlord to gain the Aura Warlord trait, and you want your big guys to not be your warlord. Because not only are they easy to kill, but you want to be using them as murder machines rather than buffers.
It's. I think you stick your warlord trait on your Herald, and you stick your relic on your Great Demon.
Well, we're about to look at those right now. Relics. And after you see this, you'll find I actually agree with you on this one, Jay.
Well, that's
so,
the first.
the Hellforged artifacts. For Khorne, we've got the Armour of Scorn, which is arguably the best one. You give this to your Bloodthirster always. So it gives them a 4-up invul and can deny 1 power. It can only be given to Khorne monsters anyway.
I'd never not give that to a Great Unclean One.
If you're running a Great Unclean One and you really can't think of anything else to give it to...
Great Unclean One, what are we smoking?
Okay.
We've got no...
Bloodthirster. So yeah, you give it to your Bloodthirster always.
Yeah.
Just if you're bringing a Bloodthirster, give him the Armour
If
of
you're
Scorn.
running Mono Khorne, just do it.
Just do it.
Actually, I'd even if I'm running 2 factions and I'm bringing a Bloodthirster, I'd pay an extra to bring that and another one.
Then we've got the Crimson Crown, which is a really good one for Khorne as well, and it'll make you think twice about just automatically giving the Armour of Scorn to a Bloodthirster.
Mm-hmm.
The Crimson Crown grants an aura ability to a Khorne model. On a wound roll of 6 up, immediately make an extra attack using the same weapon. So...
That's an aura?
That's an aura.
How big an aura?
6 inches.
So and it's any Khorne? Any Khorne demon?
Khorne model, and affects any friendly Khorne demon model.
I would not put that on a Bloodthirster. No,
you wouldn't. You'd put that on your Herald and allow it to make your blood...
You're thinking of the mounted guys?
Yeah, blood crushers or your blood letters do even more things on a 6 than what they already do. Just keep in mind all those models already get 1 extra damage on a 6. So 6s are already desirable for you. You never know, it could mean the difference between finishing off a unit and not.
Yeah, but a 4-up save on a murder beast is pretty fantastic. I mean, just look at Primarch.
It is. I'd say it is, if you're running pure Khorne, it is always worth paying 1 CP to get an extra relic.
I would.
Especially when you look at the final 2 relics of Khorne, both of which are weapons. So first we've got the King of Blades, which is a sword. So it can replace a Blade of Blood or Hellforged sword, i.e. you give it to a Herald or a Demon Prince with sword.
Yep.
Strength +1, AP -4, D3 damage. Reroll failed wound rolls when targeting a character, and if it's wielded by a monster, i.e. Demon Prince, the damage is fixed 3. So it's a direct buff to a sword. It's probably not as good as the final relic, the Skull Reaver.
If I wanted to do what that sword wants me to do, I'd just bring the Skull Taker.
Yeah.
I'd still take the armor.
It's okay, but it's outclassed by the final relic, which is Skull Reaver, which replaces an axe, great axe, or demonic axe. Strength melee, strength +3, AP -4, damage D6. Reroll failed wound rolls against Titanic units, and on a wound roll of 6, the target suffers D3 mortal wounds in addition to normal damage. If you're running a Demon Prince with axe, always give this to him. In fact, this makes it worth running a Demon Prince with axe for Khorne.
Yeah.
Because it negates the weaknesses of the axe, the -1 to hit that the axe usually gives you.
Yeah.
And it gives you massive buffs to your axe. Your murder machine becomes even more murderous.
If I know I'm going up against someone with Titanic units, I'll give that.
Well, yeah, this allows a Demon Prince of Khorne with this axe to easily go one-on-one with a Knight Titan or something equivalent.
If I'm not going against...
It's really good.
It's a tempting offer. I might even consider spending 3 CP to have all 3 of those.
If
I was running Mono Khorne.
If you're running Mono Khorne and you happen to have a Demon Prince with axe, like obviously if you're not running one, don't take it on someone.
And if you're not taking it on Demon Prince, probably don't take it at all.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not taking a Demon Prince, don't bother taking it. You'd much rather give your Bloodthirster the Armour of Scorn, and you'd much rather give a Herald the Crimson Crown. Alright, so now we go on to probably the most disappointing Hellforged artifacts, the Tzeentch ones. So, for Tzeentch, we've got the Endless Grimoire, equipping onto a Tzeentch Psyker, so not a Flamer, not a Exalted Flamer, and it gives them 1 additional psychic power. They know an additional psychic power, not cast, so meh. No, it's not useful.
Uh,
Then you've got Soulbane.
I could see it being slightly useful.
Then you've got Soulbane, which is even less useful. It replaces the bearer's ritual dagger on a herald, and it makes their dagger AP -5, and no invul saves can be taken. On anything else, that would be hilarious.
Question: Why is our herald in combat?
On anything else, that would be hilarious and super useful. But when you consider that Tzeentch heralds get 2 attacks, 3 if they're on a chariot.
Does Games Workshop just assume that we charge our heralds, no matter what they are, straight into the enemy without thinking?
And strength 3 with weapon skill 4 up, you're not going to be able to hit and do enough wounds for this to work.
I feel like that one's a joke.
It is a bit of a joke. Hilarious, but a joke.
That's what makes it a joke.
But next is the only good Tzeentch one, and the only one you'll probably ever take, the Impossible Robe. Gives a 4-up invul save, which thanks to Ephemeral Form makes it 3-up. In addition, you get a once per game reroll, and if the reroll is a 1, you're immediately slain. So obviously you save that reroll for a piece of damage that is for a wound that is going to kill you that turn if you fail it. Otherwise, you just stick with your 3-up invul save.
I'd probably take that every day on a Lord of Change.
You take it on your Lord of Change every game. You would never not. Especially when you consider the other ones. The final one is the Everstave, which allows you to replace a rod or staff. So the thing that gives
the thing that gives the plus to smite range.
Yeah, the smite range. And it gives you... you can add 1 to the psychic test when you manifest smite. It's useful. It's more useful than the Endless Grim Arrow or Soulbane.
It's a potential +4.
It's a potential +4 to smite. But...
considering how...
If you're fielding a Lord of Change, you'd rather give them the Impossible
I'd rather give them the Impossible Robe. The Impossible Robe... Lord of Chains have a real survivability problem.
Exactly. So the Everstave is useful. You take it as your second backup one if you're running pure Tzeentch, and you give it to one of your heralds, probably. Or a second Lord of Change if you're running 2 of them.
The Psychic Power one, the +1 Psychic Power that that... I could see that being potentially useful, depending on your list.
Anyway, on to Nurgle. So Nurgle gets the least amount of Hellforged artifacts, which makes sense, because Nurgle doesn't make things.
Nurgle grows things.
And they're probably not that useful for him compared to the other sections. This is probably the only section of the book where Nurgle gets the short straw.
When I skimmed them, they were about as useful as they needed to be when you looked at everything else.
Yeah. Well, first we've got the Horn of Nurgle's Rot. So roll a d6 each time the bearer kills an enemy model in the fight phase, whilst within 7 inches of a friendly unit of Plague Bearers. On a 4-up, add a single Plague Bearer. So, just kill shit and add more Plague Bearers.
I mean, I can see that, but I'm not going to argue against regaining free
useful
stuff. Because it combos with the Great Unclean Ones already restoring stuff, and it lets your heralds, which are going to be running around with them, bring some guys back. It allows you to stay above that threshold.
It's yet another power for Nurgle that lets them bring shit back.
Yeah, but when you take into account tactically, it's pretty good.
Then you got the Entropic Knell. Enemy models must subtract 1 from their leader characteristics while within 7 inches of the bearer.
Trash.
Not useful for Nurgle. Could be useful if you're playing a Chaos Undivided and you want to take advantage of Slaanesh stuff. And then you got Corruption, which replaces any number of swords. Basically, if it's a sword, doesn't matter what it's called. If it's a sword, you can replace it. And it gives them a Strength +2 AP -3 D3 damage sword that rerolls fail wounds. So it's a direct upgrade of any sword that you could possibly take in the game. For that +1 strength. It's useful no matter who you take it on.
I'd only ever stick it on a herald, and I'd much rather have the restoring Plague Bearers, because you're playing Nurgle, you're going to have a lot of them.
But if you just want a more killy anything, you can just take it. If you're running pure Nurgle, you might as well spend the command point and
You
take
know,
the sword.
you don't want to be more killy.
Well, that seems to not be the direction they've taken them. Right, Slaanesh. Slaanesh actually has a few good winners. And she also has 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of them. Oh yeah, they all have 4 except for Nurgle. Alright, so Slaanesh probably has the best ones, actually, including the best artifact, the Forbidden Gem. So you select a character within 12 inches, roll 3d6. If you exceed his leadership, it cannot act, and all of its abilities cease to function for the rest of that phase.
Awesome!
It is awesome. It is an amazing ability.
Shut down Cole, shut down Gilliman, shut down Magnus, shut down Morty, shut down everyone.
Shut down whoever you want, and basically just lay into them for free.
It sounds hard because you got to roll above their leadership, but with Slaanesh, you just lower that out.
With Slaanesh, their leadership will probably be lowered. Just do keep in mind that you got to select to do it at the start of a phase, and it only lasts for that phase. Doesn't last for the whole turn.
Can it be either player's turn?
No, it has to be at the start of an enemy phase.
It has to be at the start of an enemy phase.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do that during the shooting phase for pretty much all those characters I listed.
Do it in the shooting phase to stop them from shooting or getting their benefits. Or what you do
Well, most of those characters I just listed give huge ass bubbles.
if one of those characters decides to charge a unit
Yeah.
in the fight at the start of the fight phase, use it on them. They don't get to do anything, and you just get to lay into them for free.
It's so good.
Almost as good as the next one, the Mark of Excess. The bearer gets +1 attacks, and that goes up by 1 every time they slay a character or monster.
I won't say no to more attacks, especially combined with Warlord traits.
Yeah, you won't say no to it. It's pretty good. Then you got Soul Stealer, which replaces a sword. So either the Wit Stealer sword or the Hellforge sword. Strength +1, AP -3 damage. Each time a model is slain, regain 1 lost wound, and reroll failed wound rolls against Eldaris. So, the reroll failed wounds against Eldari is obviously mixed. If you're facing Eldari, it's great. If you're not, it's
We
meh.
get to reroll wounds against you, why not have it the other way?
But the fact is, it's a regenerating sword. So you can take it either on your Keeper of Secrets or your Demon Prince. Personally, I think the Wit Stealer sword is better. So if I was to take this, I would take it on a Demon Prince.
Yeah.
It's a direct upgrade for the Demon Prince sword, basically.
Yeah, okay. You still got me with the the Forbidden Gem.
Alright, and then finally we've got the Slothful Claws, just so the Slaanesh Heralds don't miss out on having a shiny weapon. These are pretty much Rending Claws +1. They give you +1 strength, AP -2, damage 2. And they have their rending ability trigger on a 4-up instead of 6. So, handy, useful. If you're playing Mono Slaanesh, I would spend 3 command points and give 3 of these to something. I would give Soul Stealer to a Demon Prince, I would give Soulful Claws to one of my Heralds, and I would probably give either the Forbidden Gem or the Mark of Access to something.
I'd never not take the Forbidden Gem. I'd never not take the Mark of Excess, and I would probably take the claws.
Yeah.
Why? Because I can stick those on something that's very, very fast, aka a chariot.
True. Actually, you cannot take them on the chariots. Due to the wording, they can only replace Ravaging Claws, which is what the Herald's Claws are now called. Unlike in the Index, where the Chariot and Seekers...
we don't have guys on Seekers anymore either.
There's the guys on Seekers and the guys on Chariots, their claws are called Piercing Claws.
So you only have one Herald for Slaanesh.
Yes.
Okay, that's shite. I know I would never take it.
The Slothful Claws at the moment can only replace an on-foot Herald.
Shite, would never take it. Just those first two.
Yeah, or the first 3 if you're running a Demon Prince with sword. Which I do plan on buying a Demon Prince with sword just so I can make it.
Yeah. It's a Demon Prince, you should probably have about 4 to 5 of them.
Well, it gives Slanesh a really good source of hard-hitting Strength 8 weaponry.
I wouldn't disagree with the Demon Prince's usefulness. I never will.
Alright, Psychic Powers. So,
Okay.
this is the last section that we'll go through. Yep.
Yeah, we won't cover points.
So, for Tzeentch, you got the 3 regular ones. Boon of Change, Bolt of Change, Gaze of Fate. Bolt of Change has had its warp charge value reduced to 8.
Thank.
Boon of Change is 7. Gaze of Fate... not Gaze of Fate. Treason of Tzeentch is 8. So, obviously, for these 8 ones, you only want to take them on your Lords of Change.
Problem
or
is,
Kairos.
the Lords of Change, the new ones, are better.
What?
The new psychic powers are better for the Lords of Change than those ones.
The best powers for them are the high warp charge ones. Infernal Gateway is a new one. That's warp charge 8. It's basically a mortal wound bomb, so be careful that you don't hit your own units with it.
That's the Vortex, isn't it?
Yeah.
They basically gave him the Grey Knight Vortex power.
It's basically the Grey Knight Vortex. Boon of Change, I would take on a Herald and be casting it on either Seekers or Burning Chariots or something. Something that can benefit from
all the varied effects.
All the varied effects, no matter which one you get.
It's an annoyance that it's a D3 roll, but it's low warp charge, isn't it?
7, so it's not the easiest to cast.
Seems a little...
And then you got Gaze of Fate and Flickering Flames. So these two you want to split amongst your Heralds, I think. Gaze of Fate is warp charge 6, so easy to cast, and it gives you a single reroll dice.
Yes.
Later in the turn. So always remember to use it before your turn's over.
It's a free command reroll.
Basically.
We'd never not have it.
Always cast it first in case you need to use it that phase.
Always. Make sure it's on someone that is far enough back that they can never be denied.
Yes. And then Flickering Flames, you would only ever take this on a Herald that is escorting one of your shooters, because it allows them to add 1 to wound rolls.
I'd give that to the same guy that would give the Warlord trait with
weapons.
the buff.
Yeah, exactly. You give that to the same dude, so he can just buff the shit out of shooting for 1 unit.
Ooh, on Flamers, that's nasty.
So yeah, that's Tzeentch powers. I think the 3 new powers are good. And
I really like them. It's the old powers that still get me. That they're still...
Well, Bolt of Change is warp charge 8. It's Smite that lets you target what you want to target. Because, let's face it, you're probably not going to be paying the points for a Chaos Spawn in case you kill a character. And remember, on a lot of Change, it becomes warp charge 6, essentially. You gotta roll above a 6. Less if you've got the appropriate things.
Yeah, but considering how fast some of your Heralds and Lords of Change are, it might just be easier to smite.
Oh, it will be, but it would allow them to basically Smite and Bolt of Change and just lay on the Mortal Wound hurt. You could take a...
Rather try for the Infernal Gate.
If you give Kairos, for example, all 3 of them, in fact, you could give a regular one all 3 of them as well, you could be dealing a lot of mortal wounds in the Psychic phase with 1 mortal. Treason is still very useful and hilarious if you can get it off.
Treason is great if you can pull it off, but the chances of pulling it
The
off
fact
are
that
really hard.
the fact that it's warp charge 8 means you only want Kairos or a Lord of Change casting it, because on average you'll have to be rolling higher than 8 on a 2d6 anyway, just to beat their leadership. But if you get it, it's friggin' hilarious.
Yeah, I would take it every game just for that slim hope that it would work. Because the look on your opponent's face is priceless when it happens.
So, Nurgle. Nurgle got the best.
Alright, Nurgle
psychic
already
powers.
had the best psychic powers.
They already had the best ones.
It got better.
And they got better. So they had Stream of Corruption, which was Smite, but better against blobs. Then they had Fleshy Abundance for an easy-to-cast heal.
Everything takes it. Everything that can know a psychic power takes Fleshy Abundance. Just do it.
Not everything. But if you're running models with more than 1 wound...
In Index, you took it.
You run it with your Great Unclean ones. You want to heal them. Both of those are only Warp Charge 5, so it's very easy to get.
healing on Warp Charge 5 is ridiculous.
Yeah. Then you got Nurgle's Rot, which is your Warp Charge 7. Every unit within 7 inches on a 4-up takes D3 mortal wounds. So just more 4-up mortal wounds. This one's... So don't get too close to an enemy Psyker if you know they've got that, with too many things.
That on Rodriguez.
Then they got the Shriveling Pox, which is a new one, I think.
Yes.
Warp Charge 6. Subtract 1 from Toughness.
Now, that doesn't... You don't sound too impressed by that, but that's amazing.
Because of how the wound chart works this edition...
It's not as amazing as it was last edition,
Most of the time, you'd have to pick your targets very carefully. Because if you do it against the wrong thing, you won't notice a difference in your wound rolls.
But this is a faction that can buff its strength very, very easily.
This is true. If done correctly, you could probably make it so you can wound whatever you want to wound on
Fleshy
twos.
Abundance and... What was that one called? Something of the Leper?
Oh, this is Shriveling Pox.
Shriveling Pox? Those are 2 guaranteed psychic powers for me.
Well, if you combine Shriveling Pox with that ability that gives you +1 to wound, you could pretty much wound whatever you want on 4s, on 2s. It's ridiculous.
It is.
Another ridiculous power. But only against the right target.
Again, in the situation, I'd rather have it. It's very, very handy.
Like I've said to you, the difference between Toughness 3 and Toughness 4 is amazing. The difference between Toughness 7 and Toughness 8 is amazing. The difference between Toughness 5 and Toughness 7 is meh in 9 out of 10 situations.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about... Most things fall between those 2 areas.
Yeah.
I'd like to lower Custodes -1 toughness. Does it wear... It doesn't say it wears off either.
Until the start of your next Psychic phase.
Okay. In narrative play, that's amazing. In competitive play, I still think that's amazing.
Oh, it is. No doubt. But
I still think it's an auto-take.
It's probably the least good power in the Nurgle power discipline, which is saying a lot.
She's saying a lot because I don't think it's actually that.
Because it's still an amazing power.
I'd honestly say the one that does D3 when you're close to it is probably the worst.
So then you got Virulent Blessing. Actually, I think they had that before, didn't they?
They did have Virulent Blessing before, I'm pretty sure. Which one was it? Is it?
That's the one... It's Warp Charge 7, add 1 to wound rolls, and on a 7, inflict double damage.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
That's
you can get Plague Bearers dealing 6 damage on wound rolls of 6s.
Yes, you can.
It is absolutely stupid.
Yes.
Whoever wrote these rules did not think about that when
I'm
they
a
wrote
Nurgle fan, and even I think that's silly.
And then we got Miasma of Pestilence, which is exactly the same as it is
in Death
Guard, except it only targets Nurgle demons.
Still fantastic power.
Fantastic power, just subtract 1 from all hit rolls, because why not? Because Nurgle doesn't have enough of those already.
Because everything dies super easy in this game, and they wanted Nurgle to be hard to kill.
So you could have
Yeah, we talked about this before. You can get ridiculous.
You can make Scabythrax -3 to hit.
Yeah.
So you could have something that would usually hit him on 2s, be hitting him on 5s.
Yeah.
It's so
And
stupid.
considering it takes the biggest things in this game to knock him down.
Yeah, considering it already takes stuff that is massively overpowered.
Your poor Lord of Skulls that you bought to counter him.
Yeah. Alright, then we go into Slaanesh powers. So Slaanesh didn't get as good new ones as the others, but...
Still second best psychic power tree.
The Tzeentch one is better.
No,
The Slaanesh ones are good in that they're easier to cast, but they don't do as much. So you got Cacophonic Choir still, which by itself doesn't seem that impressive. Roll 2d6 and do a mortal wound for each 1 point that you exceed the leadership characteristic. Met by itself. But
combined with other things, that's actually pretty nasty against hordes.
When you combine it with everything that Slaanesh can do to subtract from leadership, it becomes super good.
You can clear away a huge blob of guardsmen with that.
Symphony of... And it's only Warp Charge 6.
Yeah.
Symphony of Pain is the same... Exactly the same. Warp Charge 6, subtract 1 from hits. Just a nice debuff. Which can be amusing if you combine it with the neg 1 attack things that they already get. You can make your demon girls nearly impossible to strike back in close combat with that. If you do it right.
I love the way Slanesh powers in this codex really just mess with you more than anything else.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what I wished from Zench.
They make them really slippery.
No. No. Next psychic power.
Hysterical Frenzy is still stupid and you almost will never get to use it, and if you do want to use it, it will probably fail because it's Warp Charge 8.
Which one's Hysterical Frenzy? Is that the fight again?
It's the one that lets them fight again in the psychic.
It's an incredibly useful, but you're right. Your chances of getting it off.
It's situational because it means you would have had to have been stuck in close combat for 2 close combat fighting phases already. And if you haven't finished them off or been killed yourself by then, something probably went wrong. But then trying to cast it on 8 for Slanesh, who doesn't get any buffs to their powers.
It's an emergency panic button.
Pretty much. However, it can be quite useful if you need to finish off a unit and then charge something else that turn. One of their new powers is Delightful Agonies. It's basically your anti-horde psychic power. It's exactly the same as Plague Wind, I think it is.
What's it?
The one where you roll a d6 for each model in the enemy unit, and on the 6th they take a mortal wound.
It's not called Plague Wind, but I know the one you're talking about. Yeah,
you know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, from Death Guard.
Oh wait,
Just the leopards.
Sorry, that's different.
No, read the secret.
That's Pavane of Slanesh that does that. Sorry, it's Warp Charge 6. Delightful Agonies is the 6-up Feel No Pain.
Yeah, I'll take it.
We don't understand why they would do that, considering the Chaos Marine equivalent power is a 5-up Feel No Pain, but I guess they didn't want anyone other than Nurgle getting 5-up Feel No Pains, because there is no other way to get a 5-up Feel No Pain in this codex, aside from playing Nurgle. Everything else has 6s. Just like there's no way to get 4-up Mortal Wounds other than Nurgle. Just Nurgle gets all the best stuff. And then the final power is Phantasmagoria. So if you're taking Cacophonic Choir, you're taking this power because it gives a -1 leadership debuff within 12 inches.
Pretty sure that power doesn't wear off either.
It's till your next psychic phase.
Next psychic?
Next psychic phase.
Hmm.
In fact, as of the fact, even the powers here that forgot to mention that they're till the next psychic phase are till the next psychic phase.
That's unfortunate, because the ones that don't wear off from Dark Angels still don't have a fact saying that they don't wear off, which is really, really shitful.
And it just goes into the Hereticus influence. Be'lakor gets 2 powers out of Infernal Gaze, Death Hex, and Gift of Chaos. You probably give him
Infernal Gaze and Death Hex.
Infernal Gaze and Death Hex. It's got rules for Chaos Spawn, which you would never run.
Well, you might have a Chaos Spawn lying around.
And then you got the points changes, which we tried to go through all the ones that I remembered off by heart. A couple of things went up, a lot of things went down.
A lot of Zench stuff went up.
A lot of stuff tends to remain the same. And stuff was fixed.
Yeah.
A really cool thing is how Demon Prince weapons went to 10 points each.
Regardless of what they are?
Regardless of what they are. So instead of paying 47 points or whatever it was for an axe, you're now paying 10. So now it is actually a choice rather than just Malefic Talons being auto-take. Though 9 out of 10 times you'll probably still take Malefic Talons for those juicy 3 extra attacks.
They reroll. They're basically lightning claws, aren't they?
No.
No?
There's no rerolls or anything. It's just 3 extra attacks if you've got 2 pairs. But
3 extra attacks. Worth it.
For Demon Princes, if you've got a Khorne Demon Prince, it doesn't matter what you give him, he's got something to help you out. If you give him 2 talons... For Khorne Demon Princes, if you give him talons, you're getting a shitload of attacks at high strength. If you give him the axe, you can give him the Hellforged axe to replace it to make it really awesome. If you give him the sword, you've got a Hellforged relic sword that you can give him to replace it. For Tzeentch Demon Princes, you'd only ever take talons on them, not worth taking anything else. And for Slanesh Demon Princes, give him a sword. Take the relic sword to replace it. Just why not? Just do it. Yeah. Chanting Horrors cost 5 points for some reason. Never take them.
What are the What?
Chanting Horrors. You add them to Burning Chariots or Heralds on Burning Chariots. They give you a -1 to casting aura within 9 inches.
They want how much for them?
5 points. They used to be free.
No.
They used to be free, so you just don't take them anymore. Yeah.
That's silly.
So, overall, I think the Codex is really good. It has great internal balance for 3 of the 4 factions.
Yeah.
Which happens to be the 3 that I play.
I think...
This was definitely a lot of Nurgle favoritism in this Codex.
I would have been happier, and you feel free to disagree with me as a demon player who's been holding out for this, and we've talked regularly. Index Demons, they needed a hand.
Index Demons was probably the worst faction in the book. They had nothing.
I think it would have been better off if they just not done this book and just said, here is Codex Nurgle. And then, done Codex Khorne, Codex Slaanesh, Codex Zench.
Mini Codexes, yeah.
I mean, I didn't like the whole mini Codex thing. I like having all the stuff together, but the way this book is written, it felt more like...
Here's Khorne plus a few other guys.
Here's Nurgle plus some new stuff.
Yeah, here's Nurgle.
I mean, adding new stuff to this book is going to be a pain.
Yeah. Well, Nurgle was the only demon faction to receive new models and stuff. Which I suppose makes sense, as it is Nurgle's time at the moment.
Nurgle's a pretty old faction in terms of stuff. I mean, I'm grateful to have anything can replace the old Great Unclean One model.
Slaanesh will probably have their turn this year or next year.
Whenever Age of Sigmar decide... The problem with demons, and I really hate this, is that they run on an Age of Sigmar schedule.
Yeah.
I really hate that.
But look, overall, I think it's a really good codex. All 3 factions got what they needed that I play.
Yeah.
Nurgle got more than what they needed.
Nurgle got what it needed, and then it took it... And then it cranked it up too far.
Yeah. Nurgle got stuff that they didn't need. They got stuff that just made them way too good.
For the stuff they gave, right?
Even...
Like the psychic powers, the warlord traits, the relics, they gave that stuff. And they gave the updated rules for Great Unclean Ones. That's good. That's about all they needed. But once you started adding in the Gnarl Maws, the 2 new Heralds...
And then when you take into account Epidemius' tally, which
it just reaches a level of just ridiculous.
Yeah. I can easily see Nurgle Demons being a top tier army. I think they could easily compete with Imperial Guard cheesery.
Custodes are about to come out soon. I think our meta for the next year is going to be Custodes, Nurgle, and Guard.
Maybe. Well, we'll see what happens.
But even then, I don't think a Guard army could beat the Nurgle. Depending on your list, it's...
Well, that concludes our review of Codex Chaos Demons.
Yep, alright, so thank you all for listening in. This is J&T from JAAD Productions. Be sure to follow us more for more battle reports, Warzone Australis, battle blogs, and more reviews coming your way.
Yeah, let us know in the comments if you want us to keep doing reviews like this or not.
Let us know what you think of this Codex.